I have to approach this not as a historian, but as an old Las Vegan, and tell you a little tale from my past. I was going to tell you the story Todd Jones told. When I was growing up here, I was going to be Vin Scully. But he still has the job with the Dodgers. So then I was going to be a journalist, and amazingly I was. I worked at a newspaper that's no longer with us, the Valley Times. Now, here's all you need to know about the Valley Times. Our publisher was indicted for skimming money for the mob, and we were kicked out of our building for not paying payroll taxes, and then beat the IRS and got the presses back. And it was at that same time my dad, the dealer, started getting audited by the IRS. So I had a good run with the IRS. Now this ties to my dad too, because my dad worked at the Stardust, and he was personally fired by none other than Robert De Niro. If you ever saw Casino, De Niro played Ace Rothstein, who's really Lefty Rosenthal. Well, I was working at the Times the night Lefty got blown up. And we had an editor named Bruce Hazley. Best newspaperman I ever saw, and this is how Bruce put out the paper at night. We had a reporter in between jobs named Terry Kerr. Yeah, attorney, state senator. Terry goes into our publisher's office one day and says to Bob Brown, "Bob, do you allow drinking in the newsroom?" And Bob said, no, it's ruined more journalists. And Terry said, "Well, what about those dozen empties in the wastebasket?" Bob said, "Bruce is allowed." Well, Bruce could do this. And this night, the story comes in. Lefty Rosenthal's been blown up. We had no staff. We had Bruce, we had a sports editor, we had me helping them. Bruce, out of the building. Off he goes, he covers the explosion, he comes back, writes the story. Now the RJ's guy covering it was named Ned Day. Ned Day covered the mob and was the best newspaper reporter we ever had here. Ned later dies in Hawaii. He's on vacation with a good-looking blonde. He's 42. It's a heart attack while snorkeling in Maui. Now, the best part of that story is my honeymoon was in Maui, and Deborah, my wife, wanted to go snorkeling, and I wouldn't go under. And finally, she shoved my head under, and I'm yelling, "This is how they killed Ned." Well, by then, Ned's at the RJ, and I don't mean any disrespect to Ned's memory when I said Bruce wrote a better story. Well, Bob comes walking into the newsroom with the paper, and it was a tabloid saying, "Bruce, pretty nice to old Lefty." Bruce said, "Well, hell, Bob, he got blown up. What do you want me to say about him? He was this mob bastard who ruined a lot of lives, including yours." And Bob said, "Well, Bruce, it was your chance to get even for the time he fired you." Bruce said, "Lefty Rosenthal fired me?" Said, "Yeah. See, Bob skimmed money for Argent. Now, Bob Brown was a great newspaperman, a wonderful man, but he sold his soul to keep his paper going. And thankfully he did, because it got me a job. But it turned out that one of the ways they were skimming was that Lefty did a weekly betting column for which he was paid $500. I ended up putting out the paper each night, 6 nights a week, and got paid $150 a week. I wasn't skimming. Well, it turns out that this one night, Lefty was calling the paper to correct one of his picks. And Ned Day had a desk facing one corner, Bruce Hazley had a desk facing the other corner. Ned answered the phone. We didn't have a switchboard operator. He said, "Good evening, Valley Times." And he hears, "Let me have Hazley." And he goes, "Bruce, it's Lefty." Bruce does not turn around. He's working facing the wall. And he says, and Bruce was a Marine, "Tell that fucking mobster I don't want to talk to him." At the top of his lungs. At which Ned looked at the phone like this. Put it to his ear, dial tone. Next day, Bruce comes into work. Bob says, "Hey, Bruce, come to my office." Comes in, he says, "Bruce, you have vacation time, don't you?" Bruce said, "Yeah." Bob said, you don't want to go visit your family in Michigan, right? No. I got a friend, he has a newspaper on the coast in Connecticut. And he has a condo. You can stay in the condo. You can put out the paper at night. Learn more about a different newspaper. I'll pay your airfare. Bruce said, that's a good vacation. I'll take it. Off he goes for a couple of weeks. He comes back. He goes back to work. And that's that. And Bruce says, Bob is reminding him this. Bruce said, yeah, I remember. Yeah. And Bob said, well, when you went away, I took your name out of the staff box. Because when you called him a fucking mobster, the next thing he did was call me at home and say, fire Hazley. But I owed you too much money and too much vacation time, so I sent you away for 2 weeks and figured he'd forget. Shouldn't have called him a fucking mobster, Bruce. Bob left. We're all sitting there, and I was a history major then, and I said, Bruce, want me to look in the back files? Bruce said, no. Don't you want to know, Bruce? No. I finally went and looked. I found about the time he would have been picking games for us. Staff box, publisher Robert Brown, managing editor Bruce Hazley, go a couple of days. Publisher Robert Brown, managing editor Bruce Hazley, go a couple of days. Publisher Robert Brown. Went for 2 weeks. Publisher Robert Brown, managing editor Bruce Hazley. So it's a good cheating story if you think about it. Lefty was cheating everybody else. Argent with the state. Bob, to keep his paper alive, was cheating the state and cheating Bruce out of a real vacation and cheating Lefty out of the real joy of getting Bruce fired. And if that newspaper hadn't existed, I wouldn't have become a history major, wouldn't have become a history professor. And when they told me that story, I said, oh yeah, you know what? Lefty fired my dad. And he lived through the explosion. I hope they don't pin it on us. Thank you.